welcome to the official podcast of the Indiana High School Baseball Coaches Association. IHSBCA leadership includes Executive Director Brian Abbott, President Jeremy Ritchie, and First VP Kevin Hannon. Follow them online at IHSBCA.org and be sure to give them a follow on Twitter with the handle at IHSBCA. I'm your host, Dan Hill of Baseball Across Indiana, and with that, let's get right to today's episode. And these episodes are really just general conversations with coaches, but I like to wrap them around a theme. And I reached out to our guests today for a theme I like to call the Brotherhood of Baseball Coaches. We're going to spend the rest of our time today unpacking that to see what it means and if it's a real thing. Our guests, we're talking to Ryan Bunnell, head coach of the Westfield Shamrocks, Matthew Charry, head coach of the Fishers Tigers, Justin Keever, head coach of the Noblesville Millers, and Jared Moore, head coach of the Zionsville Eagles. Guys, first of all, I appreciate you joining me. I listed those names alphabetically by last name, of course, because, I don't want to be accused of instigating any favoritism here. But just on a side note, Westfield Shamrocks, Noblesville Millers, those are Hall of Fame level mascot names. So Coach Charry and Coach Moore, we're going to have to step it up a little bit with the mascot game because you're going against a couple Hall of Famers right there. All kidding aside, let's get to know these guys a little bit better. Collectively, their schools they represent have had 4 Indiana Players of the Year. And guys, correct me if any of this is wrong. Over 45 Indiana All-Stars, 270 alumni who have taken their game to the next level playing in college. Over 20 players selected in the MLB draft, and they're arguably in the toughest baseball conference in Indiana. Side note, that's not really a hard argument. We're talking about the Hoosier Crossroads Conference, along with the 4 schools of the coaches we're talking to here, Fishers, Noblesville, Westfield, and Zionsville. We also have Avon, Brownsburg, Franklin Central, Hamilton Southeastern. That's a tough conference that over the last few years has been well represented in the tournament. Going back to Coach Keever, took Noblesville all the way and won the title in 2014. Coach Charry won the title in 2018. He was runner-up in 21. And then 2019, Hamilton Southeastern won the title, all 4A. And then we could spend a whole show talking about the sectional these guys are in. Along with Fishers, Noblesville, Westfield, Zionsville, and let's just throw in Carmel and Hamilton Southeastern in that sectional as well. Wow. 1,040 wins between them across only 59 or so years coaching collectively. That's and their average wins per year are almost identical. And collectively, they're averaging over 17 wins per year. The communities they each represent are very similar as well. They're in the same conference, of course. Very similar family makeup. Very competitive on the field. Off the field, they're buddies. So, and I got to say, I got firsthand knowledge of this in the email chain that's went on for a month or so planning this episode, as well as offline here today. That I'm happy to confirm that the level of jabbing that is common between young teammates and friends is still alive and well amongst this brotherhood of grown men. So, gentlemen, you guys are the circle here of friends, and you know each other better than I can introduce you. So I'm going to have you guys talk about each other. Let's, tell me, I'm going to have each of you introduce a person, and as you do so, tell me, brag about them a little bit, something that they're not going to, brag about. What do you respect about them? What have you learned from them? Something successful about them off the field. Tell us what we don't know. Let's start with, just kind of random here. On my screen, we've got Coach Charry of Fishers and Coach Keever of Noblesville on the bottom. Coach Charry, tell us what we don't know about Coach Keever.
Let's see. Coach Keever, Justin is a tireless worker. This is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but he gets the absolute most out of his players than anybody that I coach against or I've seen or been around every year. It seems like Noblesville is kind of so going into the year, and then they're in the top 3 every year in the conference and competing for the conference championship, and always finds a way to win. Doesn't matter how they start the year, he always finds a way to get them playing hard and playing well at the end of the season. And he's a guy that I admire because he's a tireless worker. He's always trying to find angles and help his kids improve. Very analytical. Very, very intellectual. Like, he's one of the smartest guys I know and thinks through, and not just baseball, but life and processing things going on in life. And he's a guy for me, has been a huge peer mentor. We spent a lot of time over the last probably 4 or 5 years on this group chat, but in my early years, I spent a lot of time just chatting one-on-one with Justin about life and sharing scripture and Bible verses and processing faith, and just have learned a ton from him. And I know that his players get a lot from him as well.
Coach Keever, tell us about Coach Charry.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. I can't tell you how much I admire Matt, and the way he goes about his business, the way he's a father. I mean, beyond the success on the field, which I think is obvious, I really love how his players and how they love each other, and then how they come back and really admire their just love for the Fishers baseball program. And again, like Matt said, he and I have been friends for a while, and just sharing, again, life together, and the ups, the downs, just the things that things that are bothering us. There's times where we've brought conflict with one another, which one of the things I appreciate with all 3 of these guys is that we can be real. I mean, there's no sugarcoating, there's no I don't know, fronting, there's no trying to be somebody we're not. We can be real with each other, and we don't always agree, but I know that they're going to like me for who I am, and I like them for who they are and what they go about. But Matt, I mean, I tell you that he's one thing I've admired about him, one thing he's been a great example of, is always putting Christ first, and then his mission and what he's trying to do. It's for all of us that we're all trying to win ball games. We love baseball, and we love the competition. But there's a bigger calling, I think, that we all agree we're a part of. And if baseball is the only thing that they get out of this experience, that we haven't really done our job. And Matt has done an unbelievable job of relaying the love of Christ and the lessons that we learned through baseball, and parlaying it to his kids. And like I said, other than being a great friend to me, he's also been a great example to me.
Well, I like the fact, I think that's important, and we're going to dive deeper into that. One of the things you said there was, the fact that you can be real with each other. I think that accountability, basically, don't hold back. You're a buddy. I want you to hold me to a different level of standard that I don't allow other people to hold me to. We're going to dig into that a little bit deeper. Between you two right here, we're going to have a little fun with this too. Who's got the best 60 time right now? Coach Charry or Coach Keever? Who's winning the 60?
Neither.
I ran a 5.1 when I played, so I know it's not me.
A 5.1? Oh. You ran a 5.1 60.
Oh, well, 40. Sorry, I ran a 5.1. I can't even tell you my 60.
It was like
8.2. I just remember my 40 from football. That's what popped in my head.
Oh.
Well, let's go up as I'm looking at the screen at the top, we have Coach Moore of Zionsville and Coach Bunnell of Westfield. And Coach Bunnell, I got to tell you, I don't know how many times I've almost said Brunell or called you Mark almost because of Mark Brunell. I'm sure you've, or at least tell me that I'm not the only one that's ever did that before.
No, it's been a few days, a little time since I've had it much, but when he was playing, sure.
Right. Well, let's bring it right back to you. You're in Westfield. West of you is Zionsville. Tell us about what do we not know about Coach Moore at Zionsville?
Yeah, I think this is going to get a little redundant because, I think he's a blend, almost maybe a really good blend of being a player's coach, but also being kind of a disciplinarian with them, and gets the most out of his players. He's always, I don't know what they got in the water right now over there, or maybe for a while, but arms have always been there, and he has been able to get the most out of them. And they compete hard. If you don't show up on any day ready to play his guys, you're going to be in trouble because they're always prepared, they're always ready to play, and that's a testament to him. So he's phenomenal.
Coach Moore, tell us about your counterpart there from Westfield.
Thanks, Ryan. That was some kind words. I tell you what I respect most about Ryan from a baseball standpoint is how much he does for the game in Indiana. Obviously we all know he's an integral part of the IHSBCA, but it's not just that. I mean, take that and you take it into travel ball. He coaches travel ball, and then just with what he does in our conference, but more importantly than that, it's really what he does with all the kids. I really respect how hard the kids compete. I know there's always, it's going to be a great game when we play Westfield. And I think that's, kind of the same thing with all the coaches on here, but what he gives to the kids, but more importantly, who he is as a person. And he's a fantastic person. I think he's in it for the right reasons. It's not about his record or his success on the field. He's in it for the kids and how they progress after high school. And I think that's what, I'm impressed with the most.
With Jared is that the amount that he sacrifices for his family and his kids, like the three of us, Coach Keever, Charry, and I, we're all teachers. He's not. And he has, his own business that he's running, and often he's getting like 2 hours of sleep. We kind of rib him a lot that he's up at the wee hours of the night, and that's when he does all of his work because he gives so much to his families. We postponed this for a week because he was off with his daughter and all that. So he's really an incredible family man as well, and just wanted to make sure that I got that in there because I didn't before.
Let's run with that for a little bit because I want to talk about the time commitment of coaching, really anything, but when you're balancing that time that you spend with and for the team versus with and for your respective families. All of you, the family makeup here, the family dynamics are very similar amongst you. So, Coach Moore, let's bring that question right to you. First, what is something that you would tell a young coach as far as balancing that time and priorities, and then how do these guys help you stay accountable to that?
Well, I would tell a young coach that they have to have their priorities in order. I know we all enjoy coaching, we all enjoy the game, but you have to have put your family first. You're going to miss so much just by all the time you spend out on the baseball field. So for me, you got to make sure that you make time for your family, and it gets tough sometimes. You're going to miss your kids' games and missing special moments, but as long as you prioritize them first, it makes the rest of it easier.
Is there I know you guys share a text message thread that you go just kind of bouncing things off of each other on a regular basis throughout the day. So let's dig into the group dynamics of this. And let's just kind of go around the horn. And Coach Charry, maybe I'll start with you. What is this group? What is this group to you? I call it a brotherhood. What does this group mean to you?
Yeah. Outside of my family and probably my coaching staff, these guys are probably my closest friends. So for me, I mean, it's everything from accountability to honestly a chance to vent sometimes before I go home. If I've had something frustrating with the team or the program, and I know I can vent to them because they're living it also. They're going through the same things. and I can get it off my chest before I walk in the door and spend time with my family. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, they're my closest friends. They're who I go to, again, outside of my family and my coaching staff. Like, there's times when I'm wanting to send them something. It's like, oh wait, from a baseball standpoint, I don't need to tell them what I need to tell them, because then they're going to use it against me. But there's just, I don't even know how to describe it. We lean on each other and family stuff or baseball, hold each other accountable, whether we mean to or not, just by kind of things we're sharing with each other. And it's just a place to communicate. A lot of times as men, we don't share feelings or emotions or talk out things, and we can easily, shoot off a text to one another, and it just helps me clear my head or move forward or know that I'm doing things right. Or so yeah, I don't know that I can put it into words. I've kind of processed it since we started this conversation, but I mean, again, outside of my family and probably my coaching staff, these guys are my closest friends and who I lean on the most.
Coach Keever, what part of this dynamic here is maybe something you've come to rely on? It's something that you're setting the clock to.
I think a little bit of familiarity of the same things that I think we're all going through the same stuff. And I think we all have a very similar view on how we think baseball in our state should be and how baseball in our league should be, but more importantly, how I guess our purpose is and what the bigger picture is. And to have people that are like-minded and understand where each one of us are coming from and over time understanding kind of we got 4 different people on here and 4 way different personalities. We are not all the same person, and but being able to relate to where the other person is coming from, where some of each other's strengths are, where each of our weaknesses are, and our blind spots maybe, and from a macro. But I mean, Matt's right. I mean, you got outside of my friends and my coaching staff, and this is an important group for me. And we also have to be careful on what we do share, because we are trying to rip each other's heads off. So on the baseball field, and that's what I like about it, is that we can get after each other. We really can. I mean, we can an hour or so after the game, sometimes we got to wait to the next day, but we regroup, and where it could be highly contested, but we all know that at the end of the day that we're still friends, and we can again share life with each other. But I don't want this sound this like kumbaya type of thing. What I think one of the best things I do like about it, and I said this earlier, is that it's real and it's honest and it's authentic. And that is what, and I don't care who you are, it's hard to find those types of relationships. And even though we're competing like heck, and probably the most competitive league in the Midwest, probably, and the most competitive sectional, no doubt, and in a highly anticipated and a lot of expectations in all our programs and how we're supposed to compete. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, we're all trying to do something to kind of play that infinite game type of deal, where we're trying to leave a legacy and leave it better where we left it.
Coach Bunnell, let me bring it up to you there in Westfield. And how unique is this camaraderie that you guys have? Or is this something that you see a lot of examples throughout the state?
Well, I guess I don't know how unique it is. I got to believe that I think coaches often are a brotherhood. So I'm sure there's other groups of coaches that are close, and how unique it is or close to what we, kind of feel like we have. I can't speak to, but I do think coaching is kind of a special profession. I think it's a calling to a large degree, and those that choose to kind of dive into it kind of share a bond in that matter, because I think it was Justin that said, we go through similar stuff, and we're all dealing with the same stuff. And so through the avenues, I think you see it a lot of times at the state clinic or the ABCA, where coaches get together and connect, and often pick up, probably haven't seen each other in a long time, and pick up right where they left off, like they just saw them the other day. So I do think there's probably a lot of tight groups in it, but do think this one's special for a lot of the reasons Justin mentioned, and I agree. It's real, and we can kind of get after each other a little bit. But the part that kind of laughed at when he said, sometimes it's a day, and that's what I always say with Justin is if we play and we happen to get him, which isn't all that often, I generally don't text for a day because I know it's going to be a little salty coming back. So some of us are like an hour or two, others, maybe Justin, are like a day or so, maybe a week.
I'm a sore loser.
But
usually when we do hear from him, it's videotape of blown calls in the There's no way this pitch was a strike.
We might get a good game, but you didn't win that one.
Yeah,
I've never said that. I've never said that. I've never said good game.
I think you have to have that level, though. I mean, the competitiveness, is what stealing Coach Keever's words again. I think that makes it even more real. You guys are from similar communities. There's similar expectations, upon your programs. So I mean, I think you got to be able to jab each other a little bit. Is that Coach Moore? As I bring it back over to you, maybe is that I find from the outside looking in that coaching camaraderie, that coaching closeness, I think is more of a thing, more of a reality in baseball than other sports. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. I've asked some of the other coaches at Zionsville, in other sports, how well they get along with the other coaches, in our conference. And I really think that from what I've heard is, us baseball coaches get along the best. And it kind of shocks me. I would think that they all would, because we all strive for the same thing. And, for me, I want, Westfield, Noblesville, Fishers. I want them to be very good teams, because the better they are, the better we're going to be. And, so, yeah, I don't always root for them to win, depending on, how the conference standings are. But I want the coaches and the players, to have success. It just makes us all better. As far as getting along, I think I don't know that it's unique, but I don't know that there's many coaches that, have a group like this and get along and, kind of share the same ideas and the feelings about our sport.
Coach Charry, go ahead.
I would say beyond just the conference, like being in the same sectional too, makes it unique.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that there's too many people that are fighting for sectional every year. That talk through the off season the way we talk through, and again, get to that line of like, oh, we can't share that, but we're talking pretty much about everything else leading up to, and then we go and try to win a sectional against each other. I think that's kind of a part of what makes it unique. And just again, reiterating what Justin said, that we're real with one another. I mean, we've yelled at each other. I've yelled at Justin on the field before. I've yelled at Justin in the stands when he was hosting a sectional and we were playing.
Everyone yells at Justin.
I know. but then we talk it out and it's fine and we move on. And
you realize you were wrong. And then
we've had debates via text with each other, and so it's just, there's a realness to it. But again, beyond being in the same league, being in the same sectional and the competitive sectional that we're in, I think is what makes this also unique.
Coach Keever, how does this extend beyond the baseball field, though? Like I said earlier, that the families are very similar makeup, and is that something that's if it does extend beyond the baseball field, is it intentional, or what's a good level of comfortable space so it's not kumbaya?
Well, I mean, I think what I mean by that is like it's not. I think I said earlier, it's authentic. I mean, it's the good, it's the bad, it's I say bad, it's just honest. Sometimes we have a perspective that we don't always agree. I guess my point is we don't always agree. And like I said earlier, that all four of us have different personalities. and we all have 4 different perspectives, and we learn a lot from each other's perspective, because I think a lot of times I think all of us learn from our staffs. I mean, we talk about, that's the other big, huge friend group for us, is that we spend so much time with our staffs, and they innately and just kind of naturally become your best friends, because they see you at your best, they see you at your worst, and they know where your blind spots are, and they can be honest with you. And we all have our own staff group chats, and I think that's important. And off the field, I mean, Jared takes us to a Colts game every year, and we typically get together after HCC spring banquets, and we'll get together. We always talk about getting together during the year, and we never do because of life. And but I think that's the biggest part, is like it's authentic, and it's hard to find genuine relationships that are truly authentic.
And we're going to talk about how that trickles down to the field and the community as well. But let's look at that word brotherhood, or whatever we want to call it, camaraderie. I'm going to talk about 4 really general topics: competitiveness, intellectual growth, accountability, disagreement. That's another one you guys already talked about a little bit already. Competitiveness, playing to win is part of men's DNA. I think we'll all agree with that. What part of this dynamic, let's just keep going around the horn, Coach Bunnell, I'll bring it to you. What part of this dynamic helps you keep that spirit of competitiveness alive, other than just the fact that I got to beat Jared this year?
Well, yeah, if we aren't competitive, I'm not going to have a job very long, because these guys are really good. So it just naturally brings out, I think, the competitiveness in us. But I think we're all pretty competitive by nature. So or we probably wouldn't be in the positions that we're in. And so on the competitive side, I guess I don't know there. What I think about with each of these guys is just, as much as we are competitive, I'm always also watching a lot of what they do, and seeing how I can take from what they're doing and adapt it to what we do at Westfield and make our program better, because I just have so much respect for what they do and the success they've had and how they run their programs, that without them, me probably ever telling them, they've influenced me, and I've been doing it the longest of the 4 of us in our conference, and I've learned a lot from each of them. So competitiveness is always there, and we're always fighting to beat each other, but I know I'm learning from them for sure.
Is there does that, going back to extending beyond the baseball field, with this group right here, is it competitiveness extend beyond the season of high school baseball for you guys? I mean, is there any little friendly bets, any friendly competition that you guys are fighting each other on?
Not really.
No?
Oh, this is enough.
Yeah. So the HCC conference doesn't give you enough competition?
Yeah. We need a breather for a few months. So.
Well, what about, one thing I like to, an analogy I like to use is the hats men wear. You guys wear a lot of hats other than just a baseball hat. Your fathers, your husbands, teachers, leaders of young men. What part of this dynamic, keeps you aggressive, keeps you competitive to, keep your energy where it needs to be in the other aspects of life, the other hats that you wear. And Coach Moore, let's, bring it to you. You wear a lot of hats. Does this group, where does this group keep things going for you and all the other roles that you have in life?
Well, I would say that, the 3 other coaches you have on here are probably the finest 3 people that I know. I mean, they're just genuine people. They're great people. Just, outside of the baseball piece of it. So, it's one of those things that it's not like I'm trying to ever, live up to what they're doing or who they are. At the same time, you don't want to let any of them down. Now, I can't say that I go out and make all my decisions based on what these 3 think, but I will say that, the group you have here, the other 3 are just fantastic people. So yeah, I don't know that, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, I'm worried, about letting someone down or this or that. But they definitely, if you're going to run around with these, you gotta have probably higher standards and more moral character than what I do. So these are three guys to pile around with.
Before we leave competitiveness, Coach Charry, I'll just bring it right back to you there in Fishers. What would you tell, I want to kind of end all these, and as far as maybe a thought that you would pass down to a young coach. Obviously it's hard to win a state championship in Indiana. I'm preaching to the choir here, obviously, but what level of competitiveness, or where does your competitiveness need to be at? Where does the focus of competitiveness need to be for young coaches for it to be healthy?
You mentioned it earlier, most of us as men have that competitive drive already, or, that's why we're involved in a game as a coach. So I think most young coaches would already have some competitive drive, but I think the willingness to reach out and seek help from other people as well. I know when I first started, I was a young coach and, got mentored, if you will, from, Bunnell, Keever, Coach Curry Harden, who was at Hamlet Southeastern when I first started, and Jake Burton, who was at McCutcheon. But reaching out to other coaches and not being, being competitive, but not being afraid to ask for help at the same time. Or, how do you run your practice this way? Or, what are you doing in this situation? How do you handle parents? What's your, how do you handle cuts? We've talked about that before in this group. Like, how do we go through cutting kids? Do we do it one-on-one? Do we meet with them? So just not being afraid to reach out. So you still have a competitive drive and want to beat the next guy, but also not being afraid to ask questions and listen and take pieces from other people. And then on the flip side of that, as you gain experience, not being afraid to share it with, the next generation. I feel very fortunate and blessed. I had guys that I could ask questions to as I got started. And so I try to do that with some young coaches, and just pass along, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Or if you need any questions, please ask. And so while there is that competitive drive, having that understanding of, it's all right to ask for help. It's all right to give some help. You're not going to, give away huge secrets, but you can still help grow the game and help the young coach or the next coach find success as well.
Well, and competitiveness is one aspect, but the beauty of baseball is, it is a game of science. It's a game of very finite skills that are unique in the sports arena. So that brings in all the science and the technology, and we're talking about intellectual growth, or really the pursuit of staying hungry, I guess you could say. And talking about intellectual growth, the knowledge of the game. Are you guys, Coach Keever, will bring it to you. Coach Moore was talking about, how baseball coaches maybe share more than others, but I think that could be because, there's not really a playbook in baseball other than, what the pitcher's throwing, but everybody knows what a bunt is. So it's not like you're understanding what offense they're running. But so are you guys sharing drills? Are you sharing baseball strategy or technology? Where does that extend to?
Do we share those things? I know.
We have a little.
Yeah, I think in terms of what we share, you're right that there's maybe baseball's a little bit different because a bunt defense is a bunt defense. But however, there's a million bunt defenses. There's a million different approaches at the plate. There's a pitching sequences, but a lot of scouting reports are different, and how we attack each. I think we all have secrets, or let's not say secrets. We all have approaches that we have with the other program that we typically go to and adjust from that we don't share. But in terms of how the game's played, and you mentioned how all four of our communities are similar, but they're also very different. There's a lot of different aspects each school where maybe there's other sports that are really good. Maybe there's socioeconomical pattern that you all think that's similar because we're in the same county, but it's not. Except for Jared's in Boone County, which is basically a suburb of Carmel. But
Yeah, thanks.
But in terms of technology and what we're all trying to learn, I think one of the biggest things we all try to learn, and I'm not going to speak for these guys, is we've all been doing this a long time. And sometimes we need to change the way we communicate the same things. And where I think a lot of times that I've had my go-to approaches in terms of the importance of the foundations of our particular program, and they use the same vernacular. And I think sometimes it goes over some groups' heads. I think some groups it lands, and you've got to find a different way to communicate that same thing, because I think the principles are the principles. It's more all about communication. You mentioned competitiveness earlier with Matt, and I think one of the biggest things that we try to instill with our players too is winning is important. And the reason why winning is important is because it's the only variable everybody in that dugout cares about. Not everybody cares about Johnny's at bats. Not everybody cares about Timmy's innings, or Malcolm's freaking ERA. But we all care about winning. That's the common denominator. And so when we say we're trying to win, it's because we're trying to bring everybody together under one, all trying to pull in the same direction. And that's the only thing we all care about. And when we understand that, is that winning is important. It's for those reasons.
You guys have touched on so many topics here. We're going to try to keep this under an hour. Let's talk about accountability is another one that you guys hinted on already. And Coach Bunnell, let's bring it up to you. Obviously, nobody wants to see a buddy on the news, but other than those obvious things of accountability, how do you guys keep each other in check? And, how important is that?
Well, the good thing about this group is I don't think we really have to keep us out of the news or anything like that, right? There's been no accountability on anything in that category. So that's a good thing. I think probably where at least off the top of my head, where I think our accountability is, I think sometimes we're good about challenges. This game can consume you to a large degree, and I think maybe at times we kind of have challenged. I can't think of a particular instance off the top of my head, but challenged them. It's okay to step away from something to maybe do something with the family or whatever that may be. I would say that's probably at least off the top of my head. And guys, I don't know if you can think of something different, but I think we are, as part of that authenticity, that if one of us was kind of way off on something like that, or I think honestly we're in our chat and everything else, a lot of times if we're struggling with something like that, we're pretty good about that. I know we've had some parent situations now that kind of comes to mind where one of us would be struggling with something, and I think we're good about kind of, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but not letting them beat themselves up because of it, because it could do that. There's some sticky situations like that, and you can only do what you can do. And so we're pretty good about, I think, keeping us in check from wearing some of that, that stuff that comes along with the job that isn't as fun as competing out on the field.
Well, and is there, I'll pass this over to Coach Moore, but it could really be anybody. Is there any, what are others when it comes to accountability, and like you said, obviously you guys are all upstanding men that I don't think being on the news is going to be an issue unless it's breaking another record or reaching the state finals. But what part of accountability is missing, or what facets of the coaching life are vulnerable in the absence of having a circle of people with common aspects like this? What part of your life as a coach is vulnerable that you would say you need to surround yourself with a circle of influence like this?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know from I guess from a coaching standpoint. I think obviously with with the inherent nature of being a coach. You're out there and you're trying to win every game, but are you doing the right things? And so, if you're not around the right people, like if you're off on an island coaching, I think there's no question you're probably going to look for shortcuts. And I think it can mushroom into, okay, are you coaching for the kids or are you coaching for yourself? And I think the one thing about being in a group like this is you realize what's important. And for me, it's, I think all these three would agree. Yes, we want to win, but I don't think they're going to take shortcuts. And they're in it for the right reasons. They're in it to see the kids advance to the next level if that's what they want. If not, that's fine. But they're in it. And I say they. I'm talking to these three in particular and myself. But we want to make sure that when they leave our program, they're a better human being. And I think that if you're off on an island and you don't have that coaches group that really bounce ideas off or keep you accountable for how you are as a coach, that's when I think things could go off in the wrong direction. So I don't know if that was the exact an answer to your question, but for me that's what I would say.
I think I couldn't agree more. And couldn't agree more. You guys mentioned earlier that one of the great dynamics of this group is that you can disagree on things. And let's talk about that for a second, because especially among coaching staffs, I think whether a coaching staff allows a level of disagreement or doesn't, I think it at least needs to be known what the standard is going to be when it comes to handling disagreements. So, when you guys, let's bring it down to you, Coach Charry, there at Fishers, how do you and your staff handle disagreements, and how similar is it to how this group right here of colleagues handles disagreements?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for us is we really preach communication. So we don't let things fester. We don't let things build up. If we have a problem or something that's going on in the staff or something that needs to be addressed, we're constantly in communication and trying to make sure, if we recognize something's going on, that we communicate that. Even if it's, hey, I need 24 hours and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But we always try to address and don't let things kind of build up. But as the head coach, when we first started, we made sure all my coaches knew, hey, and in our coaches meeting, we do this. We can disagree, we can fight through, we can do whatever behind closed doors in our coaches meeting. But when we exit, our office, we're a united front and we're all on the same page, and we have the same message, and we're moving forward, whatever that decision may be. Following that, whether it's something that I'm 100% on board on, or whether it's it's my decision in the end, and I've taken some advice from some of my assistants, but when we walk out of the door, we're all preaching the same message, and so I've had those conversations in the beginning, and then it's allowing that space to also happen, right? Like allowing the disagreements to happen within our coaches meetings, and to work through it, and not just trying to be the dictator and squash any disagreements, but so that they can understand and my assistants know that, hey, they can question me, they can ask me questions, they can challenge me on whatever decisions I've made behind closed doors in the office, and we can talk through it. But when we're out, on the field or out in the locker room, we're a united front, and we're moving forward. But creating that space within those meetings so that they feel comfortable and know that, yes, hey, coaches, Matt's listening to me. Even if I end up making a decision against maybe something that they're wanting me to do or wanting to see happen on the field. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with that. We've had this conversation now. It's it's kind of going back 10 years or so, because we've had the same staff now for about 7 or 8 years, and so and my top assistant's Darren Sims. He's been with me from the very beginning, so we're on 17 years together. So sometimes it's having other coaches kind of question us because we have been together for so long. We're kind of doing the same thing, and we need someone else to hold us accountable and make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
Coach Keever, there at Noblesville, you were the one that mentioned early on that one of the great aspects of this dynamic, this group right here, is that you are real. You're going to be truthful with each other. you don't want a yes man in this group. What about your coaching staff? How intentional is it that you want your coaches to challenge you, at a professional level? What would you tell a young coach of how to create that good environment where you have a young coach that's going to challenge you and you give him a leash, but on the same token, like Coach Charry was said, we got to put on a unified front. How do you create that dynamic?
Well, like Simsy is with Matt, I have a guy by the name of Kevin Fitzgerald who's been with me for 17 of my 19 years here at Noblesville. And again, any new guy that comes in is also asking questions to the both of us, because we've done things a certain particular way. I think that and our coaching staff works the same way. Everybody speaks freely. Everybody has their point of view. When we do walk out that office, it's going to be whatever I decide. We're not keeping score of whose idea it was. It's all about what's best for the program. We have a sign in our locker room that says programs greater than team, it's greater than individual. And that's the hierarchy of our decision making, because the program is going to be here when Coach Keever is done, when all these players are done, there's still going to be baseball at Noblesville High School, and we need to leave it better than where we found it. Teams are going to, and then the team is obviously above the self because it serves more people. And so that's the hierarchy of our decision making. We try to make that clear to our players too. And I think the coaches, we remind each other of that. It's like, listen, like this might be best for you and your ideas, but this is best for what's best for the group, and how's it long term. For any young coach, one of the biggest things, and one of the things I try to tell any new hires that we have that come in is listen first. As much as you have a lot of ideas and you have your own experiences, and those are valuable, but you don't have this experience yet. And I think it's important to understand how you're going to be able to meld your experiences with the experiences you haven't experienced yet, to be able to contribute to that. Figure out how things are done first, and then let's see how maybe yours is a better way to do it. Because sometimes, and I was guilty of this. I mean, you could ask the late Clark Reeves and those, but how I would come in, I thought I'd invented baseball, and I had no idea how high school baseball worked from the coaching aspect. All I did was play it. I played college baseball, and again, I thought I invented it, and I realized that there's a whole different. I mean, there's a lot of people that know ball. I mean, you're not special. It's how do you work with people? How do you work with your coaching staff? And there's so many more dynamics that go, how many variables that go into it. But the biggest advice I give to a new young coach is listen. Listen first, speak last.
As we wrap up, kind of two summary questions, and I'll kind of open it up to all of you. As we think about this, everything we've talked about today, and the dynamics of having a group of like-minded individuals that are going to hold you accountable, keep you driven, keep you challenged, keep you moving forward, with respect to all of those things we talked about, how does that trickle down to the benefit of the student? Obviously that's a loaded question that is hard to quantify. But if we think about it, kind of deep for a second, what is a coach missing as far as the value they're providing to their student athlete in the absence of something like this that you guys have together? And I'll kind of open it up to all of you that have a thought on that.
I think, this group, Jared mentioned it earlier about, I hope all these guys have great seasons, except for when they play us, because it's just going to make us better. It's going to set that standard within our program of, hey, we've got to get to this, this level so that we can compete against the teams that we're competing against. And so that drive with the teams that these coaches have, and they're great coaches, and they're getting their teams prepared and ready to play, then that pushes me even, harder to get my team ready and prepared to play and compete. But then I think this group, just kind of as a personal friendship, I hope that that's built and kind of create space and build that within our own program and with our own players. And we talk sometimes like, hey, you might not like everybody on your team, but you got to find a way to love them, and we're family, and build that culture and build that dynamic. And so working through some of these characteristics we talked about, like being real and authentic with your teammates, and being able to, own your mistakes, hold each other accountable. And so kind of having this just a part of my own life and seeing the characteristics and then using that to transfer and teaching, our players of what that looks like. How do you find a group that you can be successful in, work on like mission, compete with one another, disagree with one another, hold each other accountable, move forward, take a step back. And so this group kind of trickles down in that aspect, because it's taught me characteristics then to take and help shape my players with.
Coach Moore, Coach Bunnell, Coach Keever, any thoughts on that as far as what is a coach missing as far as the value they provide to their student athlete without the dynamics of a group like this?
Well, for me, I'll keep it really simple. I mean, the thing that I think about our group, and it's a lot more deeper than this, but it's just we have fun together. And that's something that, I stress to our kids. And if you look at how much time we put into the game, and I don't mean we as coaches, I mean, even though we do, I'm talking about the players. I mean, they play all summer. We have fall ball, we have winter ball. And then we get to the spring, and then we're together every day. And there's so many other things that kids can be doing, whether it be studying, you got the social aspect, getting a rest. There's all these things that they could be doing, but, they choose to play baseball. And so if they're not having fun, then they probably ought to do something else. And so for me, I mean, it is a very simple answer to probably a much deeper question. But what's really important to me is that the kids are having fun together. As a coaching staff, we're having fun with one another. We're having fun with the kids. And, and I know there's a lot more to it than just going out and, acting like it's a big party. But for me, I think the most important thing about all of it, the game of baseball, is enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then go do something else. And that's kind of how I look at, our coaching staff, the group of guys, is we do this, and we do it year after year after year because we enjoy it and we're having fun.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Baseball's boring. Something you would never hear me say. I lied to all of you. I'm going to add one more question that's right along the lines with that. I'm sure you know what it is, but like I said earlier, you guys wear a lot of hats. Your husbands, your fathers, your leaders of men, your teachers, and your coaches. Let's look at, as a mentor of men generally, what areas of life are men missing in the absence of association in a group like this? Coach Charry, you mentioned earlier that men don't share their feelings, and there's that whole dynamic. But at the end of the day, men need a group like this. Tell me I'm wrong. Why is that right, Coach Keever? Let's bring that to you.
Well, I think one thing I've observed, and having lived it and now seeing it, is that there is a huge difference between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old. But there is an abyss and a cataclysmic difference between an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. And they're not even the same person. And 14-year-olds and 18-year-olds are very similar. And while the 18-year-old is probably more mature, they're also very insecure. And one of the biggest things that we try, I guess, to just to get real with the guys is listen, man, it is really easy to get into, to take interest in other people when things are going well for you. And it's really easy when you have all your stuff together. But if we can make it a habit of investing in other people, when you have to actually have those tough conversations, it's going to be an easier conversation because they've already put in the investment and the deposit of that emotional deposit of telling them the truth, and they know it's coming from a good place. I think a lot of times when we try to preach leadership on the team, and we as men, we need to be leaders. And when we try to teach leadership, it's sometimes they confuse it to I'm barking out orders, or I'm older, and so you younger freshmen, you go do this. Or in reality, the leader is going to actually grab the freshmen and bring them with them and show them how to do it with them. And taking that care. And you guys have all, I mean, we've all been in that same place. It's like, it's one thing for the coach to tell you the truth, to encourage you, to criticize you, to make you better. But it's another thing when the peer does it. And when the peer takes interest into your reps and it takes interest into what you're doing, my goodness, I mean, that is so powerful. And I know that as a player, as somebody who's received that from the other end, and it is just going to make somebody better. And then what you have is you get that regenerative leadership. And so somebody is treating me that way. That's how we do it. And so then you do it for the person that's coming up. And hopefully, as they get older, when they go into college, when people are a little more mature and have a different outlook, it's more just about, because one thing about high school, I'm sorry to ramble on for a minute. One thing I've noticed really about high school is you've got such a social component, the everyday social component. It's not just about your team. In college, like, you've got your team, and really that's your clique. That's who you hang out with all the time. That's your fraternity. And so you go to class, you see some people, but then you go be with your team. Here in high school, you go to class, these are your friends. They may or may not be on the team. And so you get this social component you have to entertain, and it affects your life too. And then you have a coach and you have an environment within your program, like, okay, these are our characteristics and these are the things that we're going to make important. And then you leave that and it's not really, you go to another avenue or another environment. And I think having that authentic and just keep every day just trying to, and that's why I think spending all this time with them is important. We have fall ball, we've got weights, we've got winter ball, we got all that stuff where we can, every day we can parlay a message or communicate a message and through our activities and also through our conversations with them.
Well, you hit on so many things there, and that's exactly why I asked the question. We could go another hour, I think, just on some of the things you hit on right there. But any other thoughts on that, Coach Bunnell? Maybe we'll bring it up to you as far as just that aspect of mentoring men. That age group that I kind of think about is your alumni, your graduates. Now they've graduated high school. Now they're going on to college. Now they're just trying to figure it out. They need a circle of people that are going to challenge them, that are going to hold them accountable. You know, what are the other things they're missing? And maybe is that an intentional message that you guys are trying to bring to your student athletes? Hey, I got these buddies, you know, other coaches here in the HCC. You need to find that the same. Is there an intentionality to that at all with any of you?
Well, I think so. You know, we say quite often, you know, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And so I think, you know, hopefully we impart that in them, that, you know, just to look, it's the same with, you know, we've talked a lot about our staffs, and I'm a big believer that you hire good people and you get out of their way. You know, you want to surround yourself with good people. We want our kids to surround themselves with good people. We talk about that a lot, that, you know, their actions have to reflect their goals, you know, and are you surrounding yourself with the people that are going to help you, you know, get to that point and reach what you've set out to do. And so hopefully all those principles that we're instilling in them in our programs, then they take on and apply that after they're out of it. I know for me, I you know, the toughest times in my life, I've gotten through them from things that I've learned through sport and through competing and in the game. And so we always try to use the game to teach the guys that we coach about life and build them as young men. I think this game is outstanding for that, because there's so much failure in it, and they have to pick themselves up time and time again. And you know, I wish life was all sunshine and rainbows, but we all know it's not. And so for them to be able to use, hopefully, what they get out of our program in the 4 years that they're in it, to equip themselves and then apply it in their lives, that's what we would hope. I know all three of these guys are doing that as well. And that's what makes them so great.
Well, I don't think sunshine and rainbows ever gave anybody a 400-pound bench or a 95 miles per hour two-seamer. So yeah, I agree completely. As we wrap it up, you know, Coach Moore, you mentioned fun. If we're not having some fun in this, we might as well just be turning widgets at an office. So let's think about that for a second as we wrap things up here. I know you guys jab each other and things like that, and I love it. Just kind of as a spectator. But I call it the 12-year-old kid moment. It's that moment in baseball. They do still call this game the kids' game, but it is a job for you guys. It's a career, but it's also a mission field too. I mean, you're leading men, or you're helping nurture men, these young kids into men. But when is the last time you can think about where you got to step back and you just had a little stepped away for a second in your mind and said, wow, I really love this game. And you kind of capture yourself in what I call that 12-year-old kid moment, where it's that humble, innocent joy of the game of baseball, like you were at 12 years old when you had no worries in the world. Maybe it's something that is recurring, or what was a specific event where you had that 12-year-old kid moment, Coach Moore?
Well, quite honestly, I don't know that I could define it as one moment. I mean, it's for me every game. Well, I won't say every game. We've had a few that I wouldn't like to repeat, but I think it could just be as simple as you watch these kids, have just a pitcher, have just a great inning, just watch them come off the field. I mean, every time one of our players hits a double with two guys on, and you see so much excitement. And I know that the games change, and where I think before you try not to, I guess what you call show up the other team. But now it's just part of the game. I think every team, especially on here, if you hit a double, there's something they do at second base, whatever it is. You see it in college baseball time. Now it's trickled down to high school baseball. But there's so many moments within a game that, just for me, just takes me back to, okay, hey, it's more than a game. There is something there that just brings out the joy. I think too many times we take life too serious, take the game too serious. And so I don't know that there's one moment in particular that stands out. There's quite a few, but I would say almost every game that I've been a part of, there's something in it that just makes me smile and think, okay, this is what it's all about.
Coach Charry, let's bring it down to you and on around. When you get a chance to step back and say, wow, I really do love this game?
Yeah, I would probably repeat what Jared said. Just it's almost every game. There's definitely times when it's not, but just kind of as I was processing this question, with the thought of, we had a young man over the last couple of years that really struggled. We thought he was going to be our number one pitcher. He struggled. It didn't pan out that year for him. And then just to see him to go to work in the off season and fight through that adversity, humble himself, take ownership in where he didn't live up to expectation the year before, and then the following year came out and was just flat out dominant, and just seeing him in big game situations, being able to step back and winning's great, but to kind of process the big picture of, here's a young man who learned how to fight through adversity, and now when he goes on into life, he doesn't get a job, or something's going on with family, he's already had in a kid's game a moment where he learned how to fight and compete, and to rise up and rise above. And so those moments, thinking about him, and the other moment that popped in my head was in my fourth or fifth year, when we had 4 straight losing seasons. We finally have our first winning season, and our pitcher that year just kind of carried us and led us, and I took him out on senior night, kind of a special moment on purpose, let him go out and throw warm-up pitches, and took him out on senior night, and just to kind of see him collapse, knowing that he gave everything he possibly could give for his teammates, and got it for our program. Really, that was our first year of a winning record, and kind of laid the foundation to where we are now. He didn't know that in that moment, but just kind of that process of that it was bigger than the game, and that he competed for his teammates and gave everything he had, and it was just had no more energy really to walk off, knowing that was the last time that he would pitch for us on that mound. And so those kind of moments are what pop into my head. But Yeah, again, with just, it's almost every day. We've talked about already tonight, but it's so competitive, and we want to win, and there's high expectations in our community, and we're trying to win sectional and get to the state finals and all that. But at the end of the day, there are tons of moments where we see a teammate treat another teammate correctly, and someone steps up and gets a big hit, and they have that joy and that excitement in that moment. That yes, they're satisfied because they, selfishly they did their job, but they're also excited for the guys in the dugout. We took the lead because of that hit. Just kind of seeing those moments kind of take me back to that little league kid, 12-year-old kid moment of just the joy of baseball.
Well, I call it the 12-year-old kid moment because that's when I peaked. But Coach Keever, when is baseball still fun?
We don't lose. I'm just I guess I take a little bit of take. My perspective has changed a little bit. Being a coach, I think baseball is not that little kid game to me anymore. I think it's more of a vessel. I love baseball. I don't love it that much where I get so giddy about the nuances of the game. I suppose I get really excited when players really love each other, and you get Matt and Jared have touched on this about how when other players are excited about somebody else's success, and it has nothing to do with them, and when they are unselfish, that gives me joy, and that's good. I mean, it's easy to see dog piles and all that stuff like that's, and you're watching everybody celebrate. That's an easy joy, but I can think of a couple times where we actually lost a game where I was really proud of the way our guys competed and responded. And I don't know if Jared remember, I think it was like back in 2000. I remember one time we got a hit. The first game was a game 3 of a really important series, and they threw us out the plate, and I'm celebrating because I'm like, heck yes, that's baseball. I mean, they made it. We made a play. They made a play. Guys were playing at their very best. And whatever the result is, the result is. But all we can control is our approach. And I really enjoy guys just letting it hang out, and and they're really playing for their teammates. That's what gives me the most joy doing this thing. And then every day in practice, you're trying to instill that type of response because these guys have touched on it. This game's hard, man. It's really hard. And one thing is I tell our players, and I know these guys do too, if all you get out of this is that you're a really good baseball player, you've really missed the mark. I mean, you've really lost an opportunity to get better as a person, because that's what team sports are all about. I mean, we're going to have you guys, we as players and coaches, and these guys are going to have an experience that a lot of people don't have, being a part of team sports. Ryan touched on this earlier about tough times in his life, that his experience playing in the team sport, playing on a team, he was able to tap into to help him get through some of those tough times. We all have those. And sometimes I think we take those things for granted because we've gone through those. But that's what gives me the most joy is the unselfishness, the commitment, and then their desire to make their teammates better.
Well, I've been accused of being biased about this, but I say the high school baseball coaches in Indiana are just some of the best people we want leading these high school men, and it's because of things you're saying. Coach Bunnell, let's bring it to you. Baseball and fun. We've got different vantage points here. What's your vantage point on baseball being fun?
Yeah, I think probably the times that I've kind of, and maybe at the edge of the dugout and really taking it all in, is just a lot of what they've said. But just when I see kids, the competitiveness come out, I think of J.R. Noller that we had in, what was that, 2011, I think, Matthew, in the sectional championship game. And
thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry. Just lefty, small kid with just a huge heart and a really strong competitive spirit, and just competed his heart out, and the emotion that comes out of him when he was done, and just seeing that, I mean, just you can't help it, and he's a firefighter now, and just doing great in life, just an outstanding young man. And I think those traits that made him, and I saw come out of him in those moments, are what have helped him be successful in life and find a lot of joy in seeing that. And when those things happen, it's just a lot of fun. A lot of what Justin said with, when it's just a really competitive game, it's a lot more fun when you win. But you can walk off, tell them all the time, we can walk off the field and still enjoy that we had that opportunity to compete in such a great game. So I think that for me is probably it, just those competitive moments and seeing kids that I will say when it clicks for them, and I see kids that maybe weren't super competitive and we finally pull it out of them, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, that gotcha moment where they get it, and the coach can just kind of sit back and be a spectator as for a moment. I get what you're saying there.
I think also when, sorry, I think another thing that comes to mind is just when they've been working on a skill too for a long time and it clicks. Like I know we all think of obviously Ryan Pepio as a pitcher, but he played shortstop for us as well. And we had been working really hard on the run play and his glove action on it. And I can remember the game. I don't know which one it was, but he kind of made an on the run play up there kind of towards right behind the mound, and he makes the right glove action and throws the kid out, and he turned to the glove out to the dugout, kind of gave me a little point, and I was like, that's fun seeing it click. Like he got it, like I got it, and so it's a lot of fun when they do that too.
We talk about what brings us joy in this game. I know we won our state championship in 2014. Our catcher, who's now an Army Ranger, but we had a second baseman also who was leaving for his for boot camp the next day. And he was, an interesting story with him is that he was our second baseman. He had a specific role on our team his junior year. And he was the second baseman when our number one pitcher went to the mound. Well, he ended up losing that job his senior year to a sophomore. And how he responded was to make that sophomore the best second baseman he could be, and didn't get so ingrained with his own plight and how he wasn't getting that role to somebody who's 2 years younger than him. All he did was try to make the other guy better. And that to me brought me the most joy. And then when we won it and they asked us, what jersey do you want in that box at Victory Field? I looked at Toby, his name is Toby Brown. I said, Toby, yours is the one that goes in that box, because that's the Miller. That's exactly who we want representing what we do here. That ultimate sacrifice. And again, he's fighting for our country right now.
That is why does baseball matter? It's things like this. That's I could of course I'm preaching to the choir here. Guys, as we wrap things up, any final thoughts as far as this group dynamic, this brotherhood? It's more than just jabs. It's more than just, challenging each other. It's not always kumbaya. Maybe it's never kumbaya, but there's some kumbaya. Any parting thoughts on this group dynamic and why it's important? Why a young coach needs to find a group like this that's going to challenge them?
I don't know about why they need to or anything like that, but I'll take this as an opportunity just to tell these three guys how much I appreciate them and love them, because I've taken notes over here while they're talking, and just realizing how bad a coach I am, because they're so great, and seriously just love you guys and appreciate you, and thankful for each and every one of you.
I'll go to iron sharpens iron, right? Like whether we have direct, specific, intentional communication about something that helps us grow, or whether it's just sitting in conversations like this and like Ryan just said, listening to one another and processing how we can fine tune what it is that we do or who we are as a person. So being in that community with someone of like-minded, that's you can just watch how they live, watch how they approach their their task and what they're doing, approach their family. Whether it's an intentional communication or conversation or direct ask, or whether it's just watching and observing, having this group, and just what Ryan mentioned this earlier too, is what I've learned from these three guys that's been unspoken, that they don't even know, that they've shared or talked about, and helped me process and work through, and grow as a man, and grow as a father and teacher and coach and husband. And I'm gonna rib Jared. He's the tough guy and likes to have fun and be jokester, but he's a heart of gold. Like, his players love him. He will do anything for them. It comes across as this kind of, I'm gonna have fun, tough guy, but I know that he loves his kids, and I've learned that from him, just watching how he interacts with them, watching how they interact with him. You can tell that they know that he loves them, and they compete for him, and so, like, all of that stuff, just things that these guys don't know, but I've learned, and it's iron sharpens iron. And so if you can get around a group that is like-minded, and just watch and learn and listen, and observe, you're going to grow.
Coach Moore, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, well, we've said it a number of times. I just had the greatest respect for these three guys on the field and off the field. Fantastic people. But you'd ask, okay, hey, what about a new coach? Finding a group like this. And what I would tell any new coach is they need a group like this. And it's not just for on the field stuff; it's for off the field stuff. Coaching. You need to lead. It's a big part of it. But when you have three guys like this that you can bounce things off of, that you can just watch. Coach Bunnell and Matt said it as well just now. Just watching the other coaches, there's a lot to learn. You're right. I think we mentioned earlier, our game hadn't changed a whole lot. It's changed some, but it's still the game of baseball. But it doesn't mean that young guys got to know everything. And I'm still learning. I'm a lot older than these guys. I've been probably coaching. High school not as long, but I've been coaching since '97. So probably these guys were also playing when I was coaching. But there's a tremendous amount to learn, and if they put the time and effort into it, they'll realize that it's more than just the game. It's you're trying to take in what you can so that you can help the numerous kids that you coach, and being around guys like these three right here will definitely help.
Welcome back to the pretty close to 30 minutes of general baseball banter and old guys trying to be funny that we call This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. Steve, we did something new here for this episode. We implemented the BAI Pre-Game, the show before the show. Months of planning went into this. I say jokingly, it was a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing that I think we're going to do from this point forward. But, thinking about it, how nervous do you get whenever I come to you, hey, Steve, I got an idea?
Well, I've found ways to seek out coping mechanisms, but most of them stick when you throw them against the wall.
Most of them, but behind the scenes, about 1 out of every 10 is or 1 out of every 10 is worth going public with. Folks, welcome back to This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. What we're talking about is we're starting a new thing. Every episode, every Sunday night, our normal start time is 8 o'clock, but we now we're calling it the BAI Pre-Game. It's the show before the show, and we're going to have something different every week. This week, if you missed it, it was a IHSBCA podcast that now are available on YouTube at youtube.com/at IHSBCA. That's for the Indiana High School Baseball Coaches Association. So we wanted to throw that episode out there. It was a really great episode with the 4 great coaches from the HCC there. But let's get going, starting out with this week's top 5. And the topic is top 5 things, top 5 sports stuff. Sports stuff, that's an official term right there. Top 5 sports stuff that need to go away. But before we give you the top 5, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to notify you when we got new episodes coming out, because we're not just doing our weekly show. We're going to have a lot of things coming out. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to turn on your notifications, and that way you'll be up to speed every time we come out with new content via YouTube. So here we go, the top 5 sports stuff that needs to go away. Yeah, I'm not an English major. Number 5, fake game broadcast spam. I put 2 of them up there. And number 4, online sports betting ads. Fake game broadcast spam. Be on the watch out for that. That's the reason I put out that, folks. The game broadcast spam that you see on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everything else. These fake companies that are pretending to broadcast high school baseball games, but it's just a link to a spam site. Watch out for them. Number 4, online sports betting ads. Come on, Twitter. You got to do better. Now that the big guy's in charge at Twitter, can we slow down on the online sports betting stuff? Just not a fan. Number 3, trolls who think they know more than the coaches. I saw this week. Matter of fact, it was Buskowski, I think it was, that posted one. There was a coach. I'm not going to mention the school. I'm not going to mention who it was, but he was bad-mouthing a high school baseball coach. You think you can do better? Get out there and do something instead of just being a troll. Number 2, high school Barstool sports accounts. I know I'm going to make some enemies on this one. I'm not a fan of the Barstool accounts, period. High school Barstool accounts, just close them. You don't matter. You're insignificant. You have nothing of value to add. Am I sugarcoating that too much, Steve? High school Barstool sports accounts. We need less of them, or for them just to go away. Number 1, I say kind of jokingly, high school baseball posts without using the BAI 2023 tag. Yeah, that was a shameless little plug. But this is not just for us. This is for everybody. If you've got a sports highlight or a game update, a game score, whatever it is, make sure you hashtag BAI 2023. That way all the high school baseball fans, high school baseball media companies, scouts, everybody is on the same page. BAI 2023 with Steve's high-tech graphic right there. BAI 2023. We spare no
Well, you get the point.
We spare no expense in our highlights right here, in our graphics.
Packed up in my office.
That is this week's BAI Top 5. Moving on to our regular segment right here. It's Captain Craw's College Roundup. Steve-O, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Tell us what's going on in the college scene this past week and maybe some things to look forward to in the future.
Well, I can tell you that Valparaiso, the Beacons, the Missouri Valley NCAA Division I, they are 6-3, and that's with a loss to Arkansas Little Rock. They were going for the 3-game sweep today. They did lose, but 6-3 is the best start at Valpo since 1985. So that's some good stuff. I think we were going to wait a little bit and talk about some of the highlights from this past week. Is that how we're going to do that?
No, go ahead. This is your college roundup. Run with it.
Okay. Well, Chase Hugg at Evansville, same conference in the Mobile. He was the player of the week. He went to Pike High School in Indianapolis. He hit .661 with a 7.780 on base percentage. So that makes a 1.083 OPS. He was 4 for 5 last Saturday. It was a triple shy of the cycle. He was on base 8 of the 9 times last week. In D3, Franklin College, Dylan Sprong. He went to Indian Creek. He was the HCAC Pitcher of the Week, Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Cade Colpine, who went to Homestead High School. He was the Crossroads League, easy for me to say, Player of the Week for the Taylor Trojans.
I got second time. It's second time he's got that award in his.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, he's got off to a very good start this season.
He's a Homestead kid, right?
Homestead, played for the Homestead Spartans.
That's right.
Absolutely. Hunter Schumacher at Grace College and a Westfield grad. He's a senior there at Grace at Winona Lake. He set the career mark for saves. He got his 7th one this past week, so that was a career mark at that point.
Second this year, I think it is. So I mean, he's going to add to that record quite a bit throughout the year, I think.
Right, he's now got 3. So that was the second of the year. He's got 3 as we speak. And as of the end of last week, Ryan Pelletier of Ball State was in the top 20 in the country in batting average at .519, and he was 12th in OPS at 1606.
Well, he had another home run. Was it today versus yesterday versus Wake Forest?
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I want to talk about this more a little bit later, but Wake Forest, they are legit. I think they're number 3 in the country right now. Easily could be the top college baseball team in the country. So I mean, they're legit.
They're strong. If you get online and get a chance to watch them play, they are good. Ryan Brown of Ball State, also he was number 1 in the country in Ks, 27.
Stud.
Off to a 3-0 start, no earned runs.
Well, and
opponents were hitting 0-3-0 against him.
And speaking of Wake, in that game versus Wake Forest, I think his problem right now, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think he's struggling with some walks right now. Versus Wake Forest, though, one of the top hitting teams in the country, he only pitched 3 innings, but he had 4 strikeouts, and but he had 5 walks. So I think that's why they pulled him early. But yeah, he is on fire.
Right, he can dial in the control a little bit. Maybe they can chase a little bit, but if he's that wild, they're not going to, especially hitters at that level, they're not going to chase it that far out of the zone. Ty Johnson, Indiana boy, he's at Ball State too, and he was in the top 20 in hit batters. Or so.
Speaking of hit batters, what about
either that was with purpose or that's being wild? Hit 4 batters, so don't dig in against Ty Johnson. Just kidding. But Ricardo Van Grieken, he's from Venezuela. He plays at Southern Indiana, which again is a D1 school now, and he was number 4 in the country at the end of the week with a .676 on base percentage. That's 4th in the country, and he was 2nd in the country in getting plunked. So that helped raise his on base percentage.
that does have an effect.
Generally speaking, if you're on base 35% of the time, that's good. 40, that's really good. 67. I know this is a small sample size, but that's still
well, and that hit by pitch is kind of deceiving because it was only 2. He was tied with like 20 other players with being hit twice.
Right. It's fun to look at these stats, but some stats you're thinking, well, they've had 20 at bats, so they played
right.
5 or 8 games. It mean a little more when they play 20, 25 games, but you got to start someplace.
Well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned USI just real quick before we move on here. They are their first D1 year, like you said. They're just under 500 after they were losing 6-0 today. So I chalked it up as a loss. So assuming they're going to lose today, if they haven't already, they would be 5-6. But they had 3 good games. All losses versus 10-1 Washington State. So, they're still playing really good, but for their first year of D1, they are playing some stellar competition.
They're playing a good program, and consider they crossed the country to do that.
Absolutely. Moving on with the Captain Craw's Collegiate Roundup.
Well, on Mondays, I post on IndianaRBI.com a look at the college scene, and I'll have stats and schedules and links to schedules and the past week's results and the win-loss records. So I'm working on that right now. Some of the games this week.
I'll tell you what, hold off on that because we got.
Okay, I'm jumping the gun.
Because we have some huge ones, and I want to spend some time on that as we wrap it up with the big games coming up this week, because we really do have some good ones. I want to throw in one more real quick that was on your list. I want to give a quick shout out to Coach Mercer, his 100th win with IU. His 100th, not his total win, but his 100th win with IU happened last week, so we got to give a shout out to him. And while you're at it, we always like to talk about good people to follow on Twitter and social media and things like that. Got to give a shout out to See You at the Bart. You got to look them up. See You at the Bart. They are really the only team, the only outfit. They're out of Bloomington. It's just some amateurs, and they are. And I use that. I don't use that word amateur as far as their ability. I'm saying they're not ESPN. But they do a podcast every week on IU Hoosiers baseball, and they're fantastic. I look at their stuff religiously because they are up to speed more than anybody in the country on IU baseball. So I wanted to, just throw them out there real quick. Any final wrap-ups without mentioning the next week's games on the college roundup before we move ahead with De La Coach?
Nope, let's move it ahead.
Bringing up the coach, we have Mark Della Garza. It's our weekly episode of De La Coach's Corner with Mark Della Garza of the Summit City Sluggers. He's got another good one. Like, all of these, they're just simple, practical ways to little coaching points, and he's got another good one here. Get your towel out. This is the De La Coach's Corner with Mark Della Garza.
Yeah, this episode's going to be called a towel drill. This is a pitching drill that I like to use. I know it's probably a little old-fashioned, but being from Northeast Indiana, we have to create ways to practice even when the weather's not cooperating. All right, so I incorporate the towel drill into my indoor workouts. I like it because a player can do it on his own. He can do it in the hallway at home. He can do it in the garage, anywhere. Before a workout with no catcher, you still got the towel to throw. And what the towel does, it just gives you a little bit of weight so that you're not just dry throwing. You got some sort of simulation of the ball. And I like to see how loose the arm is. And if its arm is working, the towel will come through and snap the player in the back. It goes right in between those fingers, okay? Your pinky and your index finger on the outside, the towel is holding it in the middle. That way you got a good grip on it. What I'm looking for here is whether it hits him in the back or not. See the way that comes through? That lets me know that Ethan's arm is working. He's getting the max effort out of it. And now you can break down mechanics from here too if you want to. We're not going to do that. I just want to demonstrate how I think towels should be used and my opinion of them, and emphasize that you can do this anywhere. Take a towel with you anywhere and get your work in. You don't need a partner to throw with. I like to do towels in front of a mirror. I think men are really the male, I guess, not just men, but boys, are really into the visual part of it. And if you can see yourself doing something, you can correct yourself a lot easier. No matter how good of a coach you have, I think the player still has to be his own good coach. And you can constantly check to see if the delivery is repetitive and if we're getting the most out of this drill.
Once again, that was Mark Della Garza with today's De La Coach. Appreciate Mark and all those that we done. I had a lot of fun viewing those. Moving right along with Where Are They Now? And before we get to Steve's regular segment of Where Are They Now, I want to show him a few real quick. Steve, do you follow the World Baseball Classic? Is that something on your radar?
Yeah.
Well, we've
Yeah,
got.
I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. I tell you what. First of all, and I had 100 coaches tag Hardy the Hat Guy on the tweets with all the new hats that came out for this World Baseball Classic. They are stellar. I tell you what, I'm gonna have to sneak those hats in the house somehow because I guarantee you I'm gonna buy 2 of each of them. But the World Baseball Classic, we have 3 native Hoosiers that are in the World Baseball Classic. Of course, we have, well, not native Hoosiers, but tied to Indiana anyway. You got Kyle Freeland, who is the University of Evansville grad. You have Lance Lynn, of course, who played at Brownsburg, and Kyle Schwarber is from IU. So we have 3 Indiana ties in the World Baseball Classic. That starts this week. Tuesday actually starts, but United States' first game isn't till the 11th, and they play Great Britain. So yeah, I'm all in on that. So that's my little addition to Where Are They Now. Steve, take it away. Where are they now? Who are we talking about?
Common thread here, pitchers.
Yeah.
Well, these guys are all pitchers. First one. He's a 6'6" right-hander, went to Greenfield Central High School, pitched at Mizzou, and last year he was on the he was in the World Series. Kyle Gibson.
And Steve, I'm gonna
now with the Baltimore Orioles.
I want to back up a second. I snuck another in on you. I lied to you. I snuck another in on the Where Are They Now? I forgot. I just wanted to throw this out here real quick. That LaTroy Hawkins is going to be on we talked about him last week, Steve did. He's going to be on the 2023 coaching staff for the USA Baseball 18U. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. They tweeted about that this week.
He's very involved with USA Baseball.
That's right. So, Kyle Gibson, sorry I interrupted you there. A Greenfield Central guy, and Greenfield Central, I got a feeling they're going to be represented in this one. Who you got?
Next one is Zach Plesac. Zach played at Crown Point and Ball State, and he is with the Cleveland Guardians. I'm getting used to saying that. I don't know. We don't have time to.
You're going to get me up on a soapbox.
We don't have time for that. So, and the next one is also a Ball State guy, a Greenfield Central guy, and a very fiery competitor, but so is Zach Plesac, for that matter. And that's Dre Jamison.
Another Greenfield Central, another Cardinal.
He is a Bulldog, and I would not be surprised if we don't see Dre Jamison hitting the radar at 3 digits.
Yeah,
he's got some giddy up.
Yeah, he does. Yes.
Next guy he was a guest on our show last season.
That's right.
I could remember the birds chirping because we had him on a Zoom call live from California. That was 2 teams ago because he was with the Oakland Athletics at the time, was with the San Diego Padres last year, and now he's back in the Bay Area with the Giants.
That's right.
And this is Sean Manaea, the throwing Samoan.
one of the best nicknames in all of baseball, I got to say.
Absolutely. Started out at South Central Union Mills and finished his high school career at Andrean, and he pitched at Indiana State.
Yep. Glad to see him get a contract there. He's got some years left in him.
Right. And our last guy also was on our show last year, and he is now with the Kansas City Royals. At the time, he was a free agent going from Cleveland, landed with the St. Louis Cardinals, but he's now on the other side of Missouri, and that is McCutcheon grad, Purdue product, Nick Whitgren.
I'll tell you, there's a good, because he was on our show, like you said, early on last year, and he was also on our Father's Day special because he had a great story that I'll just try to summarize real quick. He had a lot of things, but one of the things he talked about was when early on, he was basically rooming with another player when he was where? I think Miami.
Miami.
Yeah, when he was with Miami. And
I think he was with Mike Redmond, who's I think was one of the coaches, and he's a former big leaguer.
Yep, and he was a family man. At the time he was playing, he had a wife and kids that, after the game they would go home, and they had a little talk about that, leaving baseball on the field and then going home. And that was, it was just a great story of how, that Redmond was just such a father figure to him, because he, one of the things he said is, when you come home, your kids could care less if you had 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, or if you were 0 for 6 with, 6 strikeouts. They could care less. It was just a great story, and he had a lot of good things. He really spoke highly of Jake Burton. Of course, everybody does. On how Jake Burton, really, if it wasn't for him, he would not be playing Major League Baseball. So that's just really tip of the cap to him, too. Just had to throw that out there real quick. Another great Where Are They Now, Steve? I really appreciate these. You sent me this list at the beginning of the year, and I get a lot of positive feedback on this. So definitely something we're going to continue throughout the year. That is Where Are They Now? Now, let's talk about the BAI Conversations. This is our weekly segment where Steve talks about the 100 people he talked to, and I talk about the one that I talked to throughout the week. Steve, IndianaRBI.com, you mentioned you're going to have your weekly college roundup that comes out every Monday. Tell us about some of the interviews you did this week, and who you've got slated for, the coming weeks.
I think I teased a little bit of this last week, but I got finished and posted. Gene Smith is the new head coach at Prairie Heights High School. Bogan Winning runs Old Fort Baseball Company in Fort Wayne. Just a very upbeat young man. I could say that because he's 28. And I can see us coming back and partnering with him in projects again. He's just a good guy. Adam Bednarik is now the head coach at Hammond Morton, the Governors. Jordan Turner is going into his second season as head coach at Churubusco, but he's a Churubusco grad. He teaches English there. We had a conversation about how many English teachers are also head coaches, and we got to talk about, who are social studies teachers. This is a conversation that I toss around. I think Dan and I have talked about this. At some point, we're going to figure out what subjects these educators teach and coach, and also what other things they do for a living. I think that's an interesting
I
thing.
do too. I think you find a lot more math.
We talked about doing a survey. We could figure out some way of compiling that information. I know we got police officers. I've talked to a number of police officers that are coaches.
That's a neat trend also.
Yes. And then the other person that I talked to it was a week full of high school coaches, and that's Jeremy Payton, and he's the head coach at Paoli. So we got Northeast Indiana, and we got Northwest Indiana, and we got over by Fort Wayne, and it turns out we got Southern Indiana too, because Paoli's down there. I love
their campus too. Just
on the lake area.
Yep, I love their campus. Just all the rolling hills around there. The Paoli Rams also have one of the best hats.
You think of Indiana as being flat, but in Southern Indiana places not so
That's
much.
Right. It's it's beautiful down there. The IndianaRBI.com, like I said, he's got his college roundup coming out tomorrow, and always he's putting out 2 to 3 to 4 to sometimes 5 or more articles a week, Steve. We always appreciate what you're doing. As far as the IHSBCA Conversations podcast, the first thing, I want to remind everybody that it is on YouTube now. That's one of the reasons we wanted to put the Brotherhood of Baseball as our pregame this week, just to show you that it's a different environment. The people that want the YouTube to have a visual of the conversation, it is there now. I'm working on one. I've got a lot of audio editing, so tomorrow's episode is actually going to be the Brotherhood of Baseball with the 4 HCC coaches that you saw at the beginning, or if you didn't, it was Coach Keever of Noblesville, Coach Bunnell of Westfield, Coach Moore of Zionsville, and Coach Charry of Fishers. It's just a great conversation on, I called it the Brotherhood of Baseball Coaches. Just a really good one. That's going to be on IHSBCA's YouTube channel, which again, like you see there, is youtube.com BAI.org/IHSBCA. Now let's move on to BAI on deck. First thing, before we start talking about games, I want to throw a date out here at you. April 1st. And this is not an April Fool's joke. What am I talking about April 1st? What is happening on April 1st? Well, April 1st is when we go live. Our first episode of Saturday Morning Live. It's going to be our 7:30, somewhere around there. We still haven't figured it out yet. But it's our morning show where we're going to have coaches calling in from across the state and media people from across the state. It is our version of the the well-known college game day that ESPN runs, but this is going to be specifically on amateur baseball in Indiana. Obviously, during the high school season, it's going to focus exclusively on high school baseball in Indiana. Also,
we won't have any funny hats with Lee Corso, but hats will be involved.
Hey, you know what? I can do that. I've been known to carry a few hats with me. You know, it's speaking of hats. Did you recognize what lid I got on today? You got to know this one. It's in your backyard, or I guess it'd be your front yard. Yeah,
Penn Kingsman.
That's right. The defending 4A state champ Penn Kingsman is the lid I got on today. Also on April 1st, we have our Saturday Morning Live, which is our first live game day broadcast. Also on April 1st, we're going to have our first broadcast for Game of the Week, and it's going to be a good one. Bedford North Lawrence going up against Evansville North. There's some juggernauts on there. And just in case you didn't see it earlier, just a quick reminder, obviously, BAI 2023, the hashtag. Steve, let's see that high-tech graphic you got there. You got it queued up again still, right there. Like I said, we spare no expense in the high-tech graphics here at Baseball Across Indiana. If you got a baseball highlight or any kind of update, whether you're a 12U, 18U, high school, college, tag BAI 2023. That is the hashtag. Steve, now let's talk about some of the great baseball games that we've got coming up this week. These are just some of them that I mentioned. Are these ones you have on your radar as well?
Yes, I could go really deep. I just looked at D1 and D2. I could go with 3 and NAI and JUCO. I just picked out some Butler is down in LSU.
Their second attempt at the Tigers.
And LSU is number 1 in the country right now. But that would be so cool to say you played in that atmosphere.
Wouldn't it though? Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Talk about atmosphere. Evansville is at Vanderbilt. Get to play there Wednesday. Also Wednesday, Purdue Fort Wayne plays IU at the BART.
Yep.
Indiana State is at Southeast Missouri on Wednesday. I kind of skipped over because ISU is actually going to play 2 games at SEMO on Tuesday, and Valpo is at Mississippi State. Now, some of these teams are coming out of the gate with midweek games. Notre Dame schedule is such that they don't play midweeks for the first 4 weeks of the season, and then they start kicking.
Well, and ISU. You mentioned ISU. They had 3 very tight losses to Kentucky, and Kentucky's 9-2. So I mean, ISU's better.
Yeah, Kentucky walked them off today. So it was a close one.
Yeah, they are ISU, and plus, people forget that they took Iowa to 11 innings at the beginning of the year, and Iowa, along with Maryland and IU, Iowa is looking really strong as a potential regional team this year. So I mean, ISU has got a tough schedule, and they're much better than their record's showing.
Absolutely.
I mentioned real quick here when IU. I don't know if you mentioned this or not. IU's got Bellarmine this week. And
Bellarmine.
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned that is we mentioned this on the show before. Bellarmine has a ton of Indiana kids on it, so that'll be a great week. IU last week they had a win versus Texas and Georgetown, but then another loss to Texas and Long Beach State. So I mean their schedule's tough also. But I'm excited about this Bellarmine game. I hope that's streaming online. I haven't looked, but that's definitely one I'm going to catch. And you mentioned
that's a Friday night, Saturday, and then a Sunday. That's a 3-game series. Notre Dame's got 3 at Georgia Tech Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, and speaking of
Purdue's that Ole Miss.
Well, speaking of Georgia Tech, Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, and speaking of IU kids, Terry, is it Busey? A Valpo high school kid is playing for Georgia Tech.
Right. So we got Indiana guys all over the place, especially in the ACC and the SEC and just all over.
Well, and you mentioned Evansville, and we'll stay on that kind of topic for a week. Evansville's got Vanderbilt. That's going to be a tough matchup, but Butler, can they squeak by a win here? I'm not ruling it out. They swept Bowling Green. And I've also got to mention real quick that Vanderbilt's got, three Indiana kids. You got J.D. Rogers of Carmel, Michael Doolin, of course, the Andrean grad, then Andrew Dukanich, who graduated last year from Brebeuf, and then obviously they've got a commit for next year that everybody knows about, Max Clark from Franklin Community. So some more IU kids, more Indiana natives there.
You wonder some of those younger arms there that you mentioned may play, since it's a midweek game. Can kind of work their way into the weekend, rotation.
Yep.
Like Braden Reisdorf at IU.
Yeah.
There's a freshman, East Noble kid. He was an all-star. Well, he pitched a little bit for Indiana when they played their midweek this past week. So.
Well, and a couple, I don't know if you mentioned or not, but I think you mentioned Purdue versus Ole Miss.
Purdue, Ole Miss.
Yep.
Yeah.
They are
in Oxford, Mississippi.
Yep. Purdue's 8-4, and they took 3 out of 4 from Akron. So that's a decent, but everybody knows their schedule strength hasn't been the strongest, and this is Ole Miss. So I'm excited to see what happens to that.
And Paul Tate's hitting more bombs too.
Yeah.
He's former Hoosier now.
Yeah, transfer. Valpo versus Mississippi, their week. I tell you what, I don't think anybody's got a week as tough as Valpo, and this is the one I wanted to end on. Valpo versus Mississippi State, and then SMU. Now, you look at that, and
they're at Southern Miss, actually.
Right. Well, they're at
they play Mississippi State and Southern Miss.
Right,
both.
Mississippi State and Southern Miss, both. And you look at this and you're like, okay, that's going to be 4 losses or 5 or whatever. Mark my words, they're going to win one of these games because Valpo is legit. They took 2 of 3 from Arkansas to Little Rock, and that one went way deep extra innings. I can't remember how many. 2 or 3 from them after sweeping 3 from University of Tennessee Martin, and they took 1 of 3 from Kansas, and Kansas is strong this year as well. So Valpo.
And you consider that it's there's too much ice and snow in Valparaiso, Indiana, so all these games are on the road.
Yeah. So they've
been playing at home yet.
Yeah, they've just been living on the road. So, and like you said, you said at the beginning, this is their best start ever, or did you say since
85?
Since 1985. So for a long time, their best start ever. So I'm looking forward to these. And mark my words, Valpo, even though they've got one of the toughest schedules in the country this week, they're going to bring home at least a win from these 2 stellar programs. Steve, anything you want to wrap up for our BAI on deck before we wrap things up with the final out?
That's all for me.
That brings us to this week's final out. And I drew the short straw this week. Steve got it last week, so it's my turn this week. And I got 2 words for you. Let's go. High school season is right around the corner. Let's go. That is the theme. Let's go. Seniors, you're the last crop of students that had to sit out a year due to COVID. The people under you, they're like, no, we never had to sit out anything. You did. But don't be Uncle Rico. No more excuses. This is your last year to make it legit. Get excited about it now. Get as excited as Hardy the Hat Guy is. It is your senior year. Let's go. Juniors, it's now the time. This is your first year where you're going to be looked at as a leader. Let's go. Step up. Even if you got seniors on the team, it's still time to be a leader, juniors. Sophomores, that's super soft, everybody hears. Let's go. Now's the time to make your mark. Now's the time to step up and say, this is your identity. You are going to be someone to be reckoned with the next few years. It starts right there. Freshmen, let's go. You got nothing to lose. Go all out. Your future starts right now. Your future of being looked at, to being recruited, to being one of those highly touted names like we see across Indiana, it starts right now. And it's definitely not too late for freshmen, sophomores, juniors, or seniors, or even the seasoned coach. 2023 high school baseball season is around the corner, so let's go. That concludes today's episode of This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. Folks, we will see you next week.
Right.